Hey everyone, it's Michael. Every second week, maybe even more frequently than that, we're going to be talking about what we call nerd news. Nerd news is stuff that we find interesting, but, hopefully you find it interesting as well. It's junk that we find around the internet that is either serious or it could be just a little bit funny. And we want to, either way, we want to talk about it. Today's episode was recorded on the 27th of November. We're calling this episode 3. Hope you enjoy. You're listening to the Nerds Out of Order podcast, Nerd News, with Michael Lobb and David Camus. Nerds Out of Order is a podcast brought to you by two tech professionals and longtime friends, Michael Lobb and David Camus. Both have worked in various technical careers and have switched to running and owning businesses, taking them out of their little fish ponds into oceans of sharks. David, he runs One Bright Cloud and has a view towards a future where AI is commonplace and autonomous vehicles run around providing transportation to your location with the smallest energy footprint.
And Michael runs TeamScale, whose mission is to reduce the risk in software development projects, probably similar to the ones that I'm trying to implement with the AI. But he's allowing the visionary founders and talented developers to deliver amazing software on time and on budget.
From time to time, we'll be joined by guests ranging from business to technologists and every role around that.
We challenge our own perspectives and try to see things from each other's perspective. You don't need to agree, as we often don't agree with each other. But after listening to this podcast, you will definitely have an idea about the subjects we're talking about.
So speaking of those subjects, the first topic, you've got an idea. What have we got for us today?
Well, the first one off the rank today is Chernobyl. Now, I don't know if you've seen some of the news articles going around, but Chernobyl's control room is going to be open for tourists to have a little squint around at what it was like however many years ago. What are your thoughts on that, first of all?
Well, I imagine there'll be a lot of radiation. I heard that they're only going to let you in for 5 minutes at a time before you have to get the hell out. I've actually been to a nuclear power plant, and it's not often that you get to go inside one of these things, but this power plant was decommissioned before it went live, so you can actually walk through the entire reactor. But the real gem was walking into the control room where it was all 1970s, I think, technology, and there's still the computer had a dot matrix printer, not a screen. There were hand phones with spiral cords on them, just switches and buttons all over the place. That control room is amazing. What was even more incredible about that control room is the number of manuals that were in place to run that control room. So one wall was covered in ring binders full of paperwork to have where they had all of the processes for running that nuclear power plant. Now that's pretty cool. Obviously, if you tried to rebuild a nuclear power plant now, you would have computers controlling most of that. There wouldn't be any buttons all over the walls, and you'd probably have those manuals in some sort of internal documentation system. But just looking at all of these buttons and who must have wired those up, I wouldn't mind seeing Chernobyl's one, but I don't know if I'd go that close to it. What about you?
Well, I have to say Chernobyl has been on one of my bucket lists, but actually going into...
Hang on, one of your bucket lists. How many bucket lists have you got?
I have a number of bucket lists, each on different continents.
For each personality.
Each different personality I have. But Chernobyl's one actually took most of the brunt of the explosion, if I remember right. And to be able to go in that, even for 5 minutes, would raise my hairs on my arms, if not singe my hairs on my arms. But it would, as you say, it would be very interesting to see it. And I don't know what nuclear reactor control rooms are like nowadays. would be interesting to get someone on the show to actually tell us what it's
Do
like.
You know anyone?
No, but I'm sure I know of somebody who knows of somebody to get into here.
Oh, if you're listening and you run a nuclear reactor and you want to show us around, give me an email.
That would be even better if we could go there and have a look around a live one. We don't have any in Australia, so we'd have to pop across to Asia. So, but yeah, I would be very interested in going across. I know that a number of the areas around Chernobyl are still well and truly off limits, and they're closed to all public. But you can wander around the old town and the old playgrounds and the school, and you can even go into the fairground that was there at the time, because everything has literally been left as it was when they removed everybody. But I think if I was asked, I would probably do it.
If you had the chance, you would do it.
If someone gave me the chance and they asked me and I was around Russia, I would probably do it. Yes. I think I would, just for the sake of saying I've been there and done that.
Well, let's book this time in for the next year where we can do this podcast directly from Chernobyl.
Whoa. Doing the podcast from Chernobyl. I'll do it.
I'm sure you'll get better internet than you do it where you live.
I'd rather not stay there for half an hour and get the acute sickness that you can get from radiation. But anyway, you're not interested?
I would. I'd like to play it safe occasionally, but I'd probably end up doing it just because maybe to do with drinking too much vodka one night and making a bet with someone and just doing it anyway. So
I'd rather you didn't make a bet. And actually, I'll give you the vodka if we did a bet.
You'd probably be the one giving me the vodka.
I'll supply the Russian vodka.
I've got another topic, and this is a really big one in the news right now, and maybe you can use this to get to Chernobyl. What do you think about the Cybertruck?
Oh, no. Elon Musk's beautiful little four-wheel drive truck. That is a disaster waiting to happen. I don't know. I was looking at it the other day, $150 down payment, around about 50K Australian to purchase.
That's the first model. The biggest model is about 60K US.
Oh,
and I think it's got two motors, one on each axle, and I think it does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Oh, I did hear they were trying to get a motor on each axle. It actually interests me. I look at it and I think, yuck. I don't know if the design of it is exactly what I would want to. The seats don't look particularly comfortable either. And for me, who's an avid four-wheel driver, and you know me, I'm always down the beach somewhere in my four-wheel drive.
Trying to dig it out?
No, I don't get bogged. I don't know what the wading capability of one of these beasts would be, especially if you've got that much battery power underneath your seat and you're underwater. It would make me think a few times.
Well, for people like you who goes out four-wheel driving and camping a lot, there's actually a photo or a video on the Cybertruck website where they have a tent attached to the tray and a barbecue stuck to the side of it and a bunch of camping gear around it. It looks like it could actually do the job in terms of, let's go camping, but I'm sure there's no charging stations on Brivey.
Yep, that's a very good point. So then we have to think of the range. Now, I believe it was a tad under 500 kilometre range. So that's a decent range, but is that using all motors? Is that because, as we are probably well aware, that once you get down into the sand, you start chugging through the diesel or petrol, whichever you're using at the moment. Yeah. I think it's a great first step. I highly look forward to this. And me being someone who's into the AI and autonomous vehicles, I would really appreciate a drive in one to take it on to the drive. But I don't know if it's actually got me at the moment because of the design itself. But I suppose the design is there to stand out, and that's what Musk does. He wants things to stand out.
I've only got one. I mean, I don't drive a truck. You know me. I've got a tiny car because I don't have to make up for my inadequacies.
I believe your car fits in the back on the tray of my truck.
Probably. The only problem I've got with this is the name. Why the hell call it a Cybertruck? Like, it's not doing any cybering, and it's a pickup truck, I guess. But Cybertruck?
Well, maybe we can do cyber attacks with it. With that bulletproof windows, they've got these wonderful bulletproof windows. Except when
you need them when you're out 4-wheel driving.
I need those all the time while I'm 4-wheel driving. You have to try and get away from the police somehow. No, did I say that online? No, it's an incredibly tough looking beast. But would I have it? No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm quite with Musk on this one. I really like some of the vehicles that are coming up, but I don't know if this is one of mine.
Do you think that it will meet the requirements of the people who are actually going to, or who it's designed for, i.e. tradies and people like that who have got, I guess, requirements to keep all their tools on the back, they're carting around trailers, they're carting around all their gear. You know, it's got a 240 or 110 volt power outlet, so it actually acts as a power source as well. It's got an air compressor in there, so you can actually do work from this thing. It actually becomes your workshop while you're traveling. But do you think that it's going to suit these people? I mean, I don't know many tradies who would drive around in that truck.
I don't think it's a tradie truck. I think this truck is made for the elite who want to show it off, who want to drive it into the hotel to show people, this is my vehicle, I'm here and I'm making a statement. They get out of it in their Armani suit and they look good, they feel good, and I think that's what it's aimed for at the moment. I don't think it's aimed for the tradies, and I don't think it's aimed for the four-wheel drivers.
What do you think it has to do to get back down to, or back up to meet the expectations of four-wheel drivers and tradies?
For four-wheel drivers, I think it needs to really be able to prove itself. They're talking about a 6-ton towing rating. Well, to have a 6-ton towing rating, the weight of it would be humongous. I'd have to have a look at that, because over here, the maximum I think we have
batteries though. Like, it'd be all batteries, so yeah, of course it's going to weigh a lot.
Therefore, when it gets onto the beach, it's going to sink a lot. But for traders, let's look at traders. That tray. But is it a real tray? Is it a cargo bed that you can put your tools in, throw your paints in? Can you imagine throwing a tin of paint in this beautiful beast? Because I can't imagine it. Look, there's something online where you can actually purchase a tray for it now already. But they would have to do a fair bit of work for a tradie to take it on. It isn't. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd like to know about from the listeners. What do you think about the Cybertruck? Is it what you're looking for? And if so, what do you do? I've got to say one thing. I would have it parked in my drive, and I would pull the barbecue out.
Of course you would.
I'm going to pull that barbecue out, and I'm going to cook a decent barbecue on the back of it, and I'm going to have some prawns, and we'll have some fun.
But you probably won't be able to drive it anywhere because, as you've probably got no charging stations where you live either.
No, I don't have a charging station out here. You're right. Okay.
Anyway, what's your next topic, David?
I am going to move on to a topic that you actually enjoy, and that's photography. And I found a camera the other day that had a 150 megapixel camera. For the cost of one of these and for the size of the image, and I think it was called a Phase 1, if I remember, the full Phase 1 camera. That's it. What do you think about it?
I think what you're talking about is the Phase 1 IQ4, I think, is the new one that they've just released. So Phase 1 is a set of medium format cameras that have a bunch of backs that you can choose, anything from 150 down to, I think, 40 megapixels. The beauty of these things is not in the not in the size or the number of pixels. It's in the depth of the pixels. So they actually, I think that they record up to 11 stops of light, which means that when you're doing manipulation of those photos or you're trying to edit them, imagine when you're working in film, you'd burn and you'd dodge all over the place, and the film actually reacts differently or different kinds of film reacts differently because you can actually see a lot more in analog film, whereas digital sensors have, especially in your consumer brands, probably only record about 3 stops of light. So it's really difficult to bring out shadows or bring down highlights. With the phase ones being medium format, the sensors have pixels that are bigger than your consumer brand cameras. So what you're getting is a much clearer and less interpolated image that you can use to shoot amazing photos with. You can see the difference if you want to see the difference. If you're shooting just Instagram photos, selfies, don't waste your money. If you're shooting for the Rolling Stone.
So for my Instagram photos of when I'm taking selfies of me and my little autonomous pods, I'm not going to be using one of these.
Unless you're Annie Leibovitz shooting for Vanity Fair, I would not recommend using one of these.
Do you think Vanity Fair are going to be looking for me?
Maybe, you never know. I used to have phase one with I think a 60 megapixel back, and the difference between that and my Nikon D4S was pretty dramatic, not just in file size and the size of the photo, but what you could do with it after you were bringing it out of RAW. When you take a photo on a relatively high-end camera, it records it as a RAW file, which records the light that's hitting the sensor so that you can interpret that afterwards or develop that film afterwards, if you want to speak in analog terms. Yeah, so the fact that you can bring so much more out of these when you're developing those raw images is huge, because you can actually do a lot more with them. I always go by the ethos that the best camera is the one that you've got with you, and if you see a beautiful sunrise, you're not going to capture that any differently, within reason, on a 150 megapixel back on a medium format camera than you are on your iPhone, if you're not doing that as a professional and with the skills of being able to use that camera.
Let me ask you a question. You keep calling it a medium format camera. Is there a high format camera even better than this?
So you've got 35 millimeter.
You see, you're talking to someone who remembers a lot of 24 and 36 and even 12 shot 35 millimeter films.
So you take your professional or your prosumer brand name camera, like a Nikon or a Sony or a Canon, they'll have a 35 millimeter sensor in it, or the equivalent of a 35 millimeter sensor. When you put a 50 millimeter lens on there, it should kind of be, in proportion. You've got the next down from that, which is, or I wouldn't say down because some of them are actually really good. So, I mean, you'd consider 4 inches by 5 inches to be large format. 35 millimeters is obviously your standard full frame. And then anything in between 35 millimeter and large format is considered medium format.
And if anybody out there doesn't believe that Michael has a passion for photography, just listen to him go.
Oh, God, that's used up our entire 30 minutes.
That would not surprise me.
So just to be clear, have you got any feedback on that? Would you use 150 megapixel back on your $16,000 phase one camera?
Would I do it? First of all, I don't think I'd ever have a phase one. Now, here's a question. Not a question. I love taking photography. I do a lot of underwater photography. I'm a wannabe photographer. I would love to take some more and have time to actually put into it, and then to be able to try and sell my photographs along with 150 million other people who are out there at the moment. But I would enjoy taking some photographs. I'd like to take photos of the sky through binoculars or a telescope. That would be interesting, but that probably would end up as large format, I think.
Well, No, what you do is stitch the photos together. So you'd probably set up your camera to take partial photos of sections of the sky and then stitch them all together. And there's actually one, if you look online, there's one that is, I think it's a ridiculous amount of, it's ridiculous, but it's the night sky, and I think it's something like 2,000 images all stitched together to form a massive, huge image of the night sky in the Nevada desert or something like that.
That would be a wonderful photographer who took that.
But it takes a lot of care and patience. One of the things that people forget about photography, and sorry to rant on about this, and I'll probably have to cut most of this out later. What they forget is it's not actually about the camera it is a little bit about the camera they're using, but it's actually about light. Photography is about capturing light. You can capture light on any form of material that actually turns light into an image. But when you're talking modern photography, you're actually capturing that light on a digital sensor. So the better that digital sensor, the better you're going to be able to capture that light. I'm not saying everyone should go out and spend $100,000 on a new camera, but a lot of the new medium format cameras are actually really good at capturing light, and that's what we want to do. You don't need to spend a lot of money to do that, but you do need to understand how to use that.
Well, as we're talking about wonderful photography, especially night photography, one of my good colleagues, Nolan White, without plugging him, that's nolanbynature.com, he takes a lot of incredible photography and of the night sky and of nature, and nolanbynature.com have got them all up there if you wanted to have a look.
Now that we've used up all my time, I have another topic. There is a student in the Philippines has turned poo into bricks to build houses out of. Now, I've also read about another startup in Africa that installs portable toilets into people's homes for free because there's no sanitation there, in order to collect that and turn it into combustible bricks for cooking. Would you build a house made out of shit bricks? Would you have a barbecue with shit bricks? It's a really tough thing to swallow. Don't get. Oh, jeez.
Let's not go that far. Okay, first of all, let's go back to the poo brick house. What's brick made out of? Clay. What's clay made out of? It's a mixture of dirt and everything else as it gets compressed. Bricks are just something that is solid, that is enough to get into a mold that's dried and has to be solid enough to be able to take the strength of the construction that's going on it. So if it's made out of poo, and I don't even know if I'm saying this, why I would be saying this, and my belief is it's not human poo, it's actually even dog poo that's making those.
It's from the bricks are from stray dogs. I've got 2 dogs, and I could probably have built an entire castle by now.
And that's why I don't have dogs. But they take the dog poo and they mix it with cement. They put it in the molds and they become biobricks. So you've got how biobrick is it? Well, it's still got cement.
See, we should just call them cyber bricks.
Cyber bricks. And you could use your cyber ute to take them. But yeah, okay. I would say by the time they're dried, they're definitely not smelly. I think you would be able to use those with definitely to build a house, and where you haven't got the capability of large amounts of clay or other brick-like materials, I think you could do it. Now, you were talking about poo barbecues, which is another
and this is human poo.
And this is in Africa, did you say?
I believe it's in Africa. Yeah, I heard it on the I think it might have been Deutsche Welle.
Okay, so Africa, they're putting human poo, so they must be putting toilets out, little probably portable toilets into homes that don't have toilets or facilities. They're looking after people from that point of view. They're then taking that excrement and they are turning into some form of combustible brick. So they would have to dry it out completely and it would turn into a little coal, and that coal would then get heated up and you'd cook your steak on it.
I do believe that there's a hell of a lot of treatment that goes in beforehand, and I have to find the article on this, but the way that they made it sound, it didn't have any, I mean, there's no smell, there's, it's just basically like cooking with coal. You burn the coal and you have a grill on top that you put your food on top of. So it's not actually touching the bricks, and even if it was, the bricks are clean and turned into some form of, burnable, combustible stuff.
So I'd have to think to myself, would I prefer my poo being turned into a power generator, or whether I would want to cook on it? I would go down the line of a power generator for myself. I don't know if I'm ready to cook on poo yet. But if you have a poo barbecue...
Well, if I have a poo barbecue on the back of my Cybertruck using my cyber bricks...
I'm not with you. I'm sorry, you're not selling me yet.
But hey, I also don't live in areas of the world that don't have adequate sanitation, and I live in a part of the world where I don't have to, where I can afford to pay for energy to operate my stovetop and oven, whether that's in gas or power, and I don't have the same problems that exist in these small towns in Africa. So this may be,
I'd fully agree with the putting out of the toilets so that you've got some livable capabilities, and using the excrement for good is good, whichever way you look at it. Okay, just for that, Michael, it's my turn to throw something at you you're not expecting.
Go.
Google. We love Google. It's our friend. From what I'm hearing in the press now, they are in trouble with their employees again. They have taken a fairly strong line over, what they're calling alleged data security issues. Now, I agree with securing our data issues, but what that seems to have led is a whole load of underlying things have been raised around sexual harassment, climate change issues, and their pressure for different types of contracts, especially military contracts. Where is your head with that one?
I probably have a different opinion to all of the other hippies out there, and I've got to admit that sometimes I might be a bit of a utopian. I think that a company has the right, and in most cases the responsibility, to remove people that don't contribute to their ideas and goals. I don't condone what Google does in some cases, but I do agree that it's within their rights to fire employees who are not following their standards. Companies are in business to make money, and Google is making a shitload of money. So, yeah, they could probably afford to pull back on that a little bit and take some moral stances to say, yeah, you know what, we disagree with that. But these military contracts that they're taking on are huge, and people may disagree with what the military are doing, especially in the US, and I don't want to comment on politics there. Put it this way, when the zombie apocalypse happens, we expect the military to have weapons that will be able to defeat those zombies. Are we saying we don't want to fund that? I mean, the zombies are going to attack any minute, and military is saying, well, we need some zombie fighting weapons. Google are probably the people who are going to be helping the military design those zombie fighting weapons. Now, it may sound far-fetched, but Google are the people who invest in R&D. We learned from the companies. It's not just Google, obviously Microsoft and some of the a lot of the other large companies do it. But they invest in R&D. They learn about these things. They pass their ideas on, and sure, they contribute to causes that we don't necessarily believe in.
It even comes down, as you're talking about, autonomous vehicles and the Google car. There is many people who don't believe in that. But I myself believe that we will have autonomous cars on our roads very, very soon.
And who's going to drive that R&D? It's going to be military use. That
all of the autonomous vehicles at the beginning were R&D through military use. It was the military funding that started.
And people don't agree with that. People don't agree with funding military, but the like you said, the military created or gave an industry to autonomous vehicles because they need to send vehicles into areas that are unsafe for people to fly or drive or crawl through. Companies aren't a democracy in most cases. There are some exceptions, like Valve, for example, but they're not a democracy. People don't vote and say, we'd like this project, we don't like that project. If you don't like the company you're working for and you don't agree with what they're doing, and you're in a position of privilege where you can afford to leave your job because you don't agree with the ethics of the company that you're working for, then that's your call. These companies are bringing about a lot of change in the world, and that's really important to the future of the world. It's really important to help feed the world, protect the people, explore the world, explore new ways of doing things. And if we don't do that, then we may as well go back to just living beside campfires and eating plants.
In your Cybertruck.
In your Cybertruck with your cyber bricks.
With your poo bricks. You just said then that you have the right to leave. I'd also point out that if you didn't have the will to work for a company like that, and you didn't work when you were meant to be for a company like Google, and you weren't putting the effort in, I fully agree, as well as you do, that you should be removed from the company. You and I both have small companies, and neither of us can afford to take somebody on the journey who has no interest in being there. So that's looking at it from our little point of view. I look at it from a larger point of view, such as Google, Microsoft. If you're there to cause hassle and not to work, and you don't agree with what we're doing, or they're doing in their case, then I'm going to show you the door, which is exactly what they've done.
Now, there is a really big group of people who do have a say over what Google does, and that's their customers. It's my right as a customer to say to Google, I don't agree with you backing this particular cause or not putting enough effort into that cause. I would prefer to go with this other company that does have interests in saving the planet or ensuring that people's democracy was preserved and people's rights were preserved. I don't agree that employees always have the right to tell a company what to do. I do agree that they have the right to discuss and to question and to bring in arguments about what, in fact, that should be encouraged in every company. We do have to have that conversation. But at the end of the day, the company is there. The entity called Google or Alphabet is there to make money. And they're doing that by investing a lot of money into R&D, which is applied to military purposes. And I know that these security breaches that they mentioned were to do with various protests around the military contracts that they were planning on. So for me, most of those employees are also customers of Google. Pull your custom out. Let's say Netflix decided that they didn't agree with something that Amazon was doing. Netflix is a huge customer of Amazon. If they pulled out of Amazon and went to, say, Microsoft or Rackspace or one of the other big infrastructure as a service providers, then Amazon would have to think, what, maybe that cause is something that we should also be fighting for, and they can have that discussion. So I do agree that employees have the right and in fact the need to discuss and to question and to bring things up like that, but they don't have the right to breach data privacy rules set by a company that goes against their own contracts that they have with the company to work there.
And I think we both agree, if there's any truth in the sexual harassment or anything else going on that are way outside of the HR realm, we would completely disagree with that going on. It should not go on, and we would stand up for anyone fighting for those rights.
It's intolerable.
And while we're having a rant on some of these larger companies, I'll just have a rant because my Netflix has now lost my Disney channel, my Disney movies to the new Disney channel, which means my children now don't have a Disney channel, which makes it much harder for me to keep them quiet.
The never-ending story about streaming providers. So,
Yes.
which streaming providers you have? You've only got Netflix?
Only have Netflix. We don't have anything else, and I only got Netflix because of one particular series, and that was The Crown, and that was the only reason we even got Netflix.
So I've had Netflix for a couple of years now, and it's been brilliant. I've also had Stan from time to time because that's got brilliant shows on it that I like. But when in the off season, I turn Stan off and I go to Amazon Prime because Prime Video has other series that I'm really interested in, like The Boys, for example, which I thought was an amazing show. And recently, I've got Disney Plus because I want to see The Mandalorian. And I need my, a new Star Wars. So, of course, I'm going to get that. So I have to drop Prime. And, I mean, I don't have to. I can keep all five of them. Do I have another one?
If you can afford all five, you can keep all five.
Yeah. But, from time to time, they get boring. So Amazon Prime here is not great. It's pretty limited, but there are some really good shows on there. Man in the High Castle is a great show. And The Boys, like I mentioned before. Then Stan has some other really good shows on there, like Better Call Saul was on Stan, I think. And Stan also used to have all the Disney movies and the Marvel movies. Now that Disney Plus is taken, or I actually don't know because I don't have Stan at the moment, but now that Disney Plus is on, we've got all the Disney channels. And then we've still got Netflix because Netflix is just the standard that we have to watch movies. I watched a really sickeningly sweet Christmas movie the other night about a knight from the 1300s that gets transported through time by an old crone to meet a girl who he falls in love with in 2019, and then he has to go back to 1300s and see his brother's coronation. And it was a wonderful movie because everything ended happily in the end, but it occupied me for quite a while, and that's why I've got Netflix, so I can sit there and just veg out and not have to worry about thinking. The others are because I want to watch a particular TV show.
Wow.
So what have you got? You've only got Netflix. That's
just Netflix.
That's crazy. How do you survive?
How do we survive? Easily. We send the children outside to play games, and I don't even watch Netflix that much. So that's the scary thing. It's the others, the children who use it most of the time.
I that was one movie that I watched the other night, but the only time I really watch Netflix is when I'm on a plane and I download a series of TV shows and I watch I binge watch that season on the 8-hour flight to Singapore and arrive in a horrible state. Should have got sleep and didn't, and that's what Netflix does for you.
I wouldn't do that. I'd use the aircraft. I tend to use the aircraft one a lot.
Yeah, but I fly budget. Jetstar and Scoot all the way, man.
Jetstar go. I'm a Virgin flight. Virgin. And of course, we try to go business class, but that's more difficult.
Yeah,
Michael, we should leave this here, I think.
I've got one more.
Oh, no. Another surprise one. Go for it.
So, perineum sunning is the wellness trend that's hitting the big time. One woman on Instagram has said that it's more energizing than a morning coffee. She says that that 30 seconds of getting, let me just put it straight. 30 seconds of getting sun up your bum is better than a whole day in the sun, she says.
I was just about to say, let's clarify what we're talking about. We are talking about perineum sunning or butt chugging or getting the sun on your bum.
Yep. What do you think?
Are you asking me if I'm a little nudist at heart?
Have you been doing this in the back of your Cybertruck?
Do I believe that butt chugging or perineum sunning will give me my vitamins that I need? Maybe. We all know that the sun gives you a lot of vitamins. So for people to take this on, hey, go for it. I have no trouble with it. I think it would heal your body. There are certain parts of my body that will probably never get sunburnt, and I would not get them sunburnt in Australia. Michael, what about you?
So a doctor in Sydney, Dr. Sam Hay, in this article says that the perineum sunning trend is simply promoting something significantly beyond people's comfort zones for absolutely no benefit. My opinion is that this trend represents all that is wrong with humanity.
I think
and that's all I've got to say about that.
Instagram trend. This is a trend for Instagram photos that are a little out of a little risque, and it's an excuse to be nude on Instagram and using wellness as an excuse.
Should we leave it there?
I think we should leave it there because I think we both agreed that this isn't the direction to go in. Okay. With all of that, I hope you have enjoyed this podcast because it's been quite fun. Please subscribe using your favorite podcasting software. Make sure you comment and let us know what you have had about today and rate us.
Anyway, check out the show notes for any links mentioned today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, everybody.